The Chicago Bulls are now officially streaking, winning 3 games in a row to start off their West Coast trip, this time with a win against the Golden State Warriors. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Bulls being 1 game below 500 and how the rest of the season is going to get a little bit easier for the Chicago Bulls. We're also going to ask the question, what are the Bulls' biggest questions as they approach the play-in tournament and postseason play? We're going to get to all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. So the Chicago Bulls get an important victory against the Golden State Warriors. Matter of fact, it's the Bulls' first victory in Golden State since 2015 and only their second overall victory against the Golden State Warriors since 2018. It's been a long stretch of just not winning and not being able to compete with the Golden State Warriors. And that's why a win last night was so important. Yes, the Bulls did not play a perfect game. Yes, at times it seemed like the Bulls are going to fall back into some of their old habits of throwing the game away late with some key turnovers that turned into easy buckets when the game was extremely close for the Chicago Bulls, but they're able to overcome it, hold on for the win. And these are the type of wins that, as I said in the live post-game show, that really kind of build your identity for your team. And that's what you want to see for a Bulls team that is finding their way, their path through what the current roster is and, overcoming some of the hurdles that this team has had for years and years since this version of the team came together. And so that was really encouraging about this team. There was times at this game where the Bulls would have absolutely buckled in any other situation over the years, right? When those 2 turnovers, back-to-back turnovers that happened that got into easy layups for the Golden State Warriors that turned a 1-point lead into a deficit for the Chicago Bulls. But the team went through their offense. They never backed down completely. Their mental didn't break. And that was the thing that kind of stood out the most to me in this game, is that we did not see the Bulls have that complete mental break where their body language is changing to where they thought that this game was over. They were in this game mentally every step of the way, even through their mistakes. And when you look at this game, of course, DeMar DeRozan just being great as he always has been in the fourth quarter, especially over this stretch for the Chicago Bulls. 33 points from him, 10 of 17 from the field, 8 rebounds, 4 assists in this game, 1 block as well from DeMar DeRozan. Shout out to him. Then you had Nikola Vucevic, 33 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists in this game from him. And then Kobe White didn't have the kind of scoring output that we saw from Kobe, in the last couple of games, but still 20 points, 7 of 16 from the field, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals. Kobe White still found a way to impact the game, having the second highest plus-minus in the starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls. Of course, DeMar DeRozan had the highest there. And those 3 players specifically, the way that they were able to balance each other out and play well together was one of the things that, was the storyline throughout all this game. And while a lot of people are going to go towards DeMar DeRozan getting the ball again in another fourth quarter situation, in this fourth quarter, it was probably the most balanced that we've seen Billy Donovan call plays for his players in recent memory. DeMar DeRozan, yes, in the fourth quarter, got technically the most shots, right? He got 5 shots. He made 3 of those for 9 points. Kobe White got 4 shots. He only made 1 of them, but he got to the free throw line 4 times with 6 points. And then you also had Nikola Vucevic with 4 shots as well, and 7 points out of those 4 shots in the fourth quarter to help the Bulls seal this victory. The only other player in this game to score a field goal in the fourth quarter of it was Alex Caruso. Was Javon Carter, surprisingly enough. And then you had Andre Drummond hit a free throw as well for the Chicago Bulls in that fourth quarter. But it was all those core 3 players for the Chicago Bulls in the fourth quarter uplifting the team. And that's what you want to see again. And you saw that down the stretch of this game, because the way that the Golden State Warriors defended it, they could not do what we've seen some other teams do down the stretch of the game where it's just DeMar DeRozan and they know it's going to go to DeMar. Because Billy Donovan ran those plays for those other players where they still all got basically the same amount of shots, that the Golden State Warriors had to be prepared for anything, and we were able to, pull that victory out. DeMar, Vooch, and Kobe combined for 86 points in this game. And again, this team facing through that adversity has been a big part of what's kind of got been the storyline of this win streak for the Chicago Bulls. Now, outside of those players, Ayo Dosunmu also had 14 points, going 6 of 12 from the field, 2 of 5 from three-point range. He also had 6 assists in this game, 3 rebounds, 2 blocks as well from Ayo. Alex Caruso had a cold night, 22 minutes for him, 4 from the field, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 points from him. And then you had Javon Carter, of all people, leading the Bulls in scoring off the bench and minutes off the bench, going an effective 4 of 7 from the field, 10 points, 2 assists, 1 rebound, 1 steal for Javon Carter. And the fact that the Warriors played such a guard-heavy lineup really benefited Javon Carter, who defensively was able to stay in this game big time. You had Ernerlop as well with 17 minutes for 6 points there. Andre Drummond with only 13 minutes played. He had 1 point in this game, 7 rebounds, and then 3 points from Julian Phillips. He only played 4 minutes, kind of stepping down with Torrey Craig coming back, playing 14 minutes as well. So, that's the way that this team went. And like I said, facing that adversity has been a big test for this team because they haven't always faced adversity the best. And Nikola Vucevic actually talked about it after the game, and he said this.
Vooch, 3-0 on a 4-game trip. How'd you get it done tonight?
Just fought, through a lot of adversity. They made, a lot of runs. Early on, they got the lead. Even in the fourth, when they made that run, we had some turnovers and stuff. We withstand it and was able to finish the game strong. Obviously, they lost Steph towards the end and Draymond, but I just thought it was a great team effort. Everybody, that came in, helped, and we just made some big plays towards the end on defensively and made free throws at the end and came up with a big win.
You had a monster game, but you also had to ice the game with those 2 free throws. Take us through those shots.
Yeah, it's not my first time. I just, practice free throws every day. So, just get to the line, not overthinking, just shoot it where I always shoot them, and felt confident in that. And once the first one goes in, it's much easier too. But no, it was a big free throws, obviously big game for us, but just happy that we were able to win 3 in a row on a very tough road trip against some good teams, and now we have 1 more to go against a very good team. But it'd be great to finish off 4 in a row. I think then we'd be at 500 too. So it'd be quite a road trip.
You guys have seen DeMar work late game magic so many times, but that and one late was pretty special.
Yeah, that was huge, especially because that was right after Clay made that 3. So that was huge. Obviously the shot, the play, the and one, but I think it just gave us a huge confidence boost. But he's been doing it since he's been here, even before. But for us, that have been playing with him the last 3 years, just taking over, playing with so much poise at the end, making big plays over and over and over again. And we know we can rely on him. And another big thing that he does is if he doesn't have the shot, he trusts his teammates. And when you have a player like that, it gives everybody confidence.
Is it time to get greedy? 4-0?
I think it's time, yeah. Did we have any 4-win streaks this year, 5? I don't know. Did we?
Not on the road.
But yeah, it is there. It's a tough team, but, you never know. We can do it. So it'd be amazing, obviously, to do this trip. So we knew it was going to be a tough trip, and it'd be great to do it.
Thanks, Vooch, for your time.
So much. Appreciate
The Bulls are playing as a team, and they're using that as a confidence boost on this road trip. And this road trip could help the Bulls kind of propel them in what they're going to do for the rest of the season. That's the hope, at least. When you look at it, Kobe White getting back in rhythm for this team has been absolutely huge. Over the month of March, Kobe White's really back, 26 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and averaging 1 steal a game so far through the 4 games in the month of March. He's shooting the ball 57% from the field and 51% from three-point range. Are those numbers going to maintain for the entire month of March? If they do, he's back in that most improved player conversation, which he should be in either way. I'm a Bulls fan. It is what it is when it comes down to it. But, seeing the way that this team has come together, and even Nikola Vucevic playing better here over the last stretch. And while people, me, myself included, have been down on Nikola Vucevic, he's really been playing well. Like, you got to give him credit. Over the month of March, he's averaging 20 points per game over the month of March with over 50% shooting from the field. He is in 41% from three-point range. That three-point range, it got boosted up for sure in this game, going 3-6 from three-point range. But, it is what it is there. But even when you look at the month of February for Nikola Vucevic, yeah, there were some really bad shooting nights. He shot the ball 28% from 3, but he averaged 20 points per game over the month of February for the Chicago Bulls and 11 assists. So, Vooch has been playing better. And if he start playing his best basketball at the right time, of course that's going to be, great for the Chicago Bulls as we head forth. And, really the clutch Chicago Bulls are a thing for this team. When you look at it, Kobe White, plus 92 in clutch minutes in the season. Nikola Vucevic, plus 73 in clutch minutes on the season. DeMar DeRozan, plus 72 in clutch minutes in on the season so far. Those are the 3 players leading clutch plus minus in the entire NBA so far this season. And that's not just a flash in the pan. That's not something that's just accidental. This team is really playing better, and it's noticeable that this team is playing much better here than what they were playing early in the season when they started off 4-15 and whatever that was. The Bulls now are 4 games above 500 in their games without Zach LaVine. Again, say that for what you will. Zach was dealing with things, but that's just the reality of where this team is. And again, Nikola Vucevic talked about how this team has been playing just as that as a team, and he said this.
It's not only being 3-0, but the way you guys are winning, clutch games, contributions from multiple players. What does that mean for you guys moving forward?
It's big, for everyone's confidence. We always talk about staying together, lift each other up, and I think with all the injuries and everything we've been through this year, I think it's really brought us closer together and really, built, trust within one another, and it shows, we really trust each other out there. We play for one another, and it's just different guys stepping up each game, making big plays, but it's big shots, big rebounds, big defensive plays, whatever it is, and we just continue to try to play that way. We know it's the only way for us to be a good team, it's just it's been. I feel like each game on this road trip has been different guys stepping up, making big plays, and so hopefully we continue to do that. The next one is a very tough one, the best teams in the league, so we have to be our very best, but. It was very important for us to get these first 3 for sure.
The Bulls are now 1 game below 500. Again, every time we get to that point of being close to reaching that 500 mark, the Bulls always seem to crap the bed when it comes down to that. And we'll see what the Bulls can do in that. But when you look at it, there are 19 games now left on the season. 8 of those 19 games left will be against teams with worse records than the Chicago Bulls. And, the Bulls haven't always fared well in that, again, losing to like the Detroit Pistons. 11 of those games will be against teams with better records than the Chicago Bulls. So the Bulls are in a position where they can take advantage of those things. The Bulls have the 8th easiest schedule remaining in the NBA from now until the end of the season, even though we have one of the more difficult seasons until March 15th, which we're approaching that date. But it gets considerably easier for the Chicago Bulls over that right now. When you look at it, the teams that are above the Chicago Bulls, the Pacers, the 76ers, the Cavs, and the Hawks, all dealing with their own kind of roster concerns with some of those teams with injuries, but they all have some of the most difficult records remaining in the NBA on this back part of the season. So this is where if the Bulls are going to make a move, the Clippers game notwithstanding, this is the time for the Bulls to show that they can do it. Now, it's going to be up for them. It's going to be a tough go, right? Nothing is easy for the Bulls, and they can't go into any game, in my opinion, acting like they're the favorite to win. This Bulls team has to play with a collective chip on their shoulder if they're going to really want to make a move. But while at times I doubted the Chicago Bulls' ability to go above that 9th seed, things may be pointing to where maybe that's now a realistic possibility for the Chicago Bulls. You look at their game on Saturday, earlier game at 3 p.m. Chicago time, 4 p.m. Eastern against the Clippers. After that, they got Dallas and Indiana and the Clippers again, and then it gets easier after that, right? So that puts you around the mid of March. So between March 16th to when the season ends on April 14th, that basically month stretch, the Chicago Bulls have one of the easiest schedules in the NBA, and it's just going to remain to see how much of what we've seen from this Bulls team, how much of that edge is going to be something that they can continually build off of. And if they can, they're going to be in a position to where, hey, the Bulls can make a move up the standings. Now, let's not get too far ahead. Every game, let's focus on that game. And overall, the most important thing is that the Bulls just win the games that they can win. Let the season come to the conclusion that the season is going to come to. But I tell you what, for AK, want to bet on competitiveness, this team is kind of showing that for better or worse, however you view that, right? The Bulls now have a 2.5 game lead over the Atlanta Hawks for that 9th seed, and we have more than a 6-game advantage, 6.5 game, I think, advantage over the Brooklyn Nets and the Toronto Raptors, or the next teams up there, the 11th and 12th seed. So the Bulls are in a really good position to be able to lock down a postseason appearance again for the 3rd straight year in a row. Take that for what you will. But the bigger question is, what can the Bulls really make some noise if they get into especially if they get out of the play-in, but even in the play-in. And that's where we're going to get into our last topic for today. And that is, what are the Bulls' biggest questions heading towards postseason play? And one of those biggest questions has to come through one of our best success stories this season, and that's Kobe White, the consistency from Kobe White. While, yes, he went through a slump, as every player does in the NBA, they go through a slump, but you got to keep in mind, Kobe White has seen such a huge increase in his role. Last season, averaging less than 24 minutes per game and only starting 2 games last season. So this season, he started every single game that he's played in. And on top of that, he's leading the league in minutes played. So there is a reason, an actual reason, not just an excuse for Kobe White to go through those slumps and have those times where he's a bit gassed and he's having to get over that hump in a way, right? But that is a question. We'd be remiss to not have that as one of the questions for the Chicago Bulls team, because Kobe is such an important part for what the Chicago Bulls team does. And when the offense is humming and flowing the best way that it has looked, Kobe White's a huge part of that. So you want to make sure that Kobe White is going to be able to stay consistent, especially in postseason play. Like I said, shout out to Kobe White for playing the amount of games that he had at the minutes that he's played it at as well, starting every game for the Chicago Bulls so far in the season. He hasn't missed a game yet, and knock on wood that continues, of course, right? But I talked about already the month of March that Kobe White's having, but outside of that, Kobe White is such an important part of this engine outside of just the scoring. When you look at it, when the Bulls are rocking and rolling and that offense is going, a lot of times the ball is in Kobe White's hands, and he's able to make that decision. The way that he's grown as a point guard, for that earlier stretch that I talked about against the Golden State Warriors, where the Chicago Bulls turned the ball over, both those were plays where Kobe wasn't the one that had the ball in his hands in the half court. I think it's important to kind of put that ball in Kobe's hands, yes, he's averaging 2 turnovers per game, but when you look at that assist ratio, over 5.5 assists per game, Kobe White and his usage rate is an important part. So we need Kobe to be consistent. And I don't just mean scoring in that. I mean with the output, with the defense that he gives. How he sacrifices his body at times is going to be a big part for the Chicago Bulls team. And Kobe White has shown more than enough that he can do it. We just need to make sure that he's going to stay consistent in doing it. And talking about like the minutes that Kobe White's played as well, you got to look at the bench production. And that's one of the biggest question marks for this team as well. When you look at them going into the postseason, how much success can they have against some of those teams that have done it longer? Bench production. The Bulls are the worst bench scoring team in the NBA. The worst. They average 26.8 bench points per game. And then when you look at the overall number of points scored off the bench, the Bulls are dead last in the NBA in bench point score this season. Now, there are reasons for that, right? We have a player like Ayo Dosunmu, players like Alex Caruso that are now entrenched in the Chicago Bulls starting lineup, but that has now weakened the Chicago Bulls bench, right? And, we hope players like Julian Phillips, Erno Lop, now with Torrey Craig back, Andre Drummond as well, to kind of add some more of that punch. But we've seen it. When you get into the play-in, when you get into postseason type play, how your bench and your role players can step up for you really helps push you to those new heights and close out some of those games. And that's really what you want to see for the Chicago Bulls. How is that bench production going to come back, right? And over these last 19 games, I love the fact that Torrey Craig came back, even on the minutes restriction, because if we can get Torrey Craig back in rhythm before we end this season, it's going to go a long way in helping the Chicago Bulls, have more balance on that bench. And even if he does move into the starting lineup when he's fully healthy, which some people have asked, will he eventually be the starting 4 again, once he's off that minutes restriction? And yeah, there's a complete possibility for that. And I think that the Bulls may actually be better for that, having that 3-and-D player at that starting 4 and moving Alex Caruso or even Ayo Dosunmu, whoever you decide to do, back to the bench. So, that's also something that you can look at, is helping the Chicago Bulls get everybody back healthy, solidifying that bench a little bit more for the Bulls. And so you really want to see that. But, but that's still a big question. That bench production number, once I saw that it really worried me, right? I'm not going to lie to you. It was a bit concerning seeing how bad the bench scoring has been for the Chicago Bulls. But we know that bench also brings a lot of defense. We don't play Andre Drummond a lot of minutes, but him, Torrey Craig, or even if you move Alex Caruso back to the bench, those are solid defensive players. And for his credit as well, Batum has also showed that he also is no slouch defensively, right? Still has some questions, right? Where physicality sometimes gets to him, whatever you want to say about that. But like, he's a guy who doesn't back down. He's no slouch defensively. He doesn't shy away from anything defensively. But that bench, how that bench produces, is going to be a really big part of that as well. And so, and even, DeMar DeRozan talked a little bit about the Bulls and their hopes for the postseason. He said this: we just got to stay the course, do what we need to do, pull out the victory, and carry on. And that leads us to the next point that we have in this. The Bulls' inability to close out games is one of the biggest concerns that I have for this team as we prepare to end the season, right? Yes, the Bulls are the best clutch team in the NBA. They have 3 of the best clutch players in the NBA in plus minus in clutch scenarios and situations, and that is great. I do not want to take away from what the Bulls have been able to do in the clutch, but let's be clear here. There are several games over the season where the Bulls have put themselves in bad situations in the clutch, right? So with giving up leads, not being able to hold on to those leads, right? Giving up big scoring runs to the other teams and not really being able to face that. The three-point shooting as well, right? How we give up big three-point shooting numbers to opposing teams. All those are things that you absolutely have to look at with this team and say realistically, yeah, there are tons of reasons to question that for the Chicago Bulls team. So, closing out games is an important part of it as well. When you look at the Chicago Bulls, also, we got to be clear here. The Bulls are 12-26. That's a 31 win percentage against teams that are above 500. And that's where some of the concern lays in, right? Again, better that we're facing a lot of teams that have worse records than the Chicago Bulls. All cool there, all good. But when you get into the point of really looking at the level of competition that you're going to be facing off against in postseason play, there's more than enough reason for concern there for Bulls fans of how successful this team's going to be. So they're going to have to also look to shore that up. The Bulls right now rank number 1 in allowing 47.7 points in the paint per game. They also rank 30th in allowing 43.5 points from three-point range. What does that mean? The Bulls are really good and solid at limiting points in the paint, but they also give up tons of points out on the perimeter with that three-point shooting. The Bulls have to lock in, and if they don't, it's going to be a long, maybe not a long postseason for the Chicago Bulls if they can't shore up those things. So while the Bulls have been playing great, they're rocking and rolling, they're really starting to show that edge that we've been wanting to see now for a while from the Chicago Bulls. There's still things that they have to tighten up if they really want to find that true success in the postseason and be that Cinderella story. Now, some Bulls fans are going to say they don't want the Bulls to be Cinderella story. Why can't I say Cinderella all of a sudden? What was that about? But there are going to be some fans that don't want to see the Chicago Bulls be a Cinderella story because they're going to want that lottery pick, right? And that's fair to say with the talent level that we have, how close we're going to be up to the luxury tax. And it's going to be interesting with how this front office uses the Bulls, however they finish the season, to kind of excuse or fix or whatever they do in that. In the pregame show last night, live, somebody asked and said this, is that, well, if the Bulls do make it out that play-in, that's going to be the reason that the front office will use to keep and run the team back. And while I understand that thought process at all, and I can't say that for 100% that that's not going to be the case, I'm also going to throw this out there. The last time that the Chicago Bulls, before forming this team together, after they traded for Nikola Vucevic, and it was Vooch and Zach, when they were close to making the playoffs, people forget, the Bulls would have made the playoffs. They were on pace to make the playoffs that season before Zach LaVine went down with COVID and then ended up missing the last 2 weeks of the season, something like that. Before the Bulls looked at that and said, hey, we added this piece in Vooch. We almost got to the playoffs in an offseason where they had no cap space, added Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Alex Caruso to that core team. And here's what I'll say to that there is that outlook that you could have to say that if the Bulls make it out the play-in tournament, that at that point, the front office look at it and say, we got to take advantage. We have to file the career-ending injury exception for Lonzo Ball, mainly because we need to add to this team, and that's our best bet to add to this team. Be a little bit more aggressive. We may see them move off Zach LaVine's contract for maybe not the deal that they would have looked for at the trade deadline, but maybe to add a little bit more cap relief to a team that can absorb a big portion of his salary into their salary cap so they can get a little bit more flexibility. I think that there is a chance that if this team does, we can see a more aggressive team. Now, I still want the Bulls to draft for. That's still something that they have to do, and that's why I've kind of still been looking at talent right outside the lottery just in case of how it goes. But how this team finishes this season, it's going to be important to see how the Bulls front office either supports it, right, by trying to make the right changes to the roster to support the way that the roster has changed, or how much things will stay the same based off the little tinge of success that we end up having. But let me know what you guys think about all that. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.